Thank you. Thank you guys very much. Let me just start off by thanking Sandlot Partners, everyone involved, Casey, Dave, their team. I've got a small glimpse into the amount of time and energy, the money that they put into this conference, and I'll tell you, it's really humbling to be a part of it. But I am grateful to be here. You know, Casey called and asked if I would come and share my story with each of you. So as I thought about it, I'm 32 years old, and it really caused me to think about what's important in my life. You know, what has happened in my life that allowed me to be where I'm at today. And I tried to put all that together in a condensed presentation for you. So I'm going to ask a few questions today, invite you guys to think about, to ponder, because some of these questions have had a profound impact on me. I want to start off by sharing a quick experience with you. This happened last year. I was in a meeting room with one of my coaches, with a few of my teammates, and my coach brought up a question to me and my teammates, and he said, "What is the greatest compliment that I can give you as a coach?" And then he said, "You know, what is the greatest compliment that I can receive as a coach?" And I thought about this for a little bit, and his answer had a profound impact on me. But I would also ask you this same question, right? We all wear so many different hats, whether we're a father, a husband, a mother, a wife, a son, a daughter, whatever that is, a colleague, a boss. What is the greatest compliment that you can receive? What is the greatest compliment that you can give? And I loved his answer. And he said this. He said, "The greatest compliment I can give you as a coach is that you overachieved. Is that you did more with the opportunities that you had. You accomplished more than anybody expected, maybe more than what you anticipated." Right? This was the answer. It had a profound impact on me. And then I started to think about another question that I think requires all of us to really think about. And this question is, how do you define success? I think oftentimes we allow outside noises, the internet, social media, whatever it is, to define this term for us. And I believe each of us really need to think about what this word means to each of us. So as you hear my presentation, as you hear some of my experiences, my stories, I'm going to share what I believe for me, how I would define this word. But I invite each of you to think about what that means to you. With that in mind, I want to share a story with you. It's about somebody that I know. With his permission, he allowed me to share this story. I'm going to share his childhood. This particular person grew up in a small town on a farm in the 60s and 70s. Now, I would describe the culture at this time on this farm, this small town. It was more about expectation, responsibility, rather than love and nurture, right? His childhood would be described as, hey, take care of your chores around the farm, take care of your animals, you know, all of these responsibilities. He was not going to your soccer game when he was 4 or 5 years old. He wasn't getting ready for t-ball. You know, as he progressed through his childhood, he was learning to work on the farm. At age 14, he lost his mother to a tragic car accident. I talked about love and nurturing and not really being in the home, but when it was in the home, it was with his mom. 2 years later, he was 16 years old, he lost his brother to another car accident. As you can imagine, the family was broken, and they were all trying to survive and figure out life. When he got to high school, He wanted to be involved in extracurricular sports activities, but he still had his duties on the farm. And these were not encouraged. He was not encouraged to play sports. He was not encouraged to stay longer after school. The expectation was you go to school, you come home, you finish your chores on the farm. So he would wake up extra early. He would take care of his chores, his responsibilities, and then he would go to school so he could stay late and be a part of extracurricular activities, different sporting events. And then oftentimes he would come home and have to finish some of these chores. And imagine making these sacrifices, finally getting to the point where you can play in a game, and then looking up in the stands and not one time, not one time seeing your father in the stands there to support you. This was this kid's childhood from when he was born to when he was 18. As many of you may have concluded, this story is about my father from 0 to 18. And now I want to tell you about the back half of his life. When he was 18 years old, he left the house. He took a job. He was working nights. And then soon after, he got on at the local utility company in Idaho, where he worked at Idaho Power for 42 years, where he became an excellent employee. He had 4 kids that I would describe my father as one of the most loving people I've ever been around. I talked about how his dad never showed up to a single one of his sporting events. My dad didn't miss a single one of my sporting events that he couldn't make it to, that he could make it to. My dad didn't go and make a ton of money, but as I think about success, as I think about overachieving in life, I think about my father. So I wanted to start off by sharing my father's story, because I didn't feel like I could share my story without his story. I feel like I'd become a byproduct of having an incredible mother and father. I became the byproduct of having 3 older siblings that all played collegiate sports to some capacity. Right, when I was a little kid, I was that annoying little kid chasing the ball around at all the sporting events that you see. You go watch your kids or whatever. I was that little kid running around causing problems. But that was my childhood. And as I look at the opportunities that my father had versus the ones that he created for me, I am forever indebted to my father and my mother for what they did for me. So that was my childhood. Now I want to transition. I want to talk a little bit about my college career. Now I could sit here and tell you about my college career, but I do have a video that was made for me. I apologize. It is a little outdated. But it does a far better job than I can by showing this. So I'm going to play this video. It's about 8 minutes, and then I'll come back and talk about it.
My name is Taysom Hill, from Pocatello, Idaho, born and raised. I literally grew up with a ball in my hand.
Brace yourselves for the following news. Quote from Bronco Mendenhall on his quarterback Taysom Hill about his season-ending injury. The doctors knew it was bad. When they got in there, it was worse. More. How about a plate, 8 screws, every major ligament was shredded.
Yeah, you could tell that was a hard tackle, and he is really hurting. Was not putting any weight on his left leg.
13 minutes left in the second quarter. I explode forward and I pop my Liz Frank in my right foot.
Coming flag down, we would expect a holding call. Hill's in the end zone.
The ligament that allows you to get on your tippy toes, jump, give you all your explosion, all that stuff in your foot was just gone. Right there. There's no one that could be that unlucky to have 3 season-ending injuries going into this year and then to have it happen the first game of the season in the second quarter. It was heartbreaking. I was in disbelief at this point. My brother Dexter is one of the funnest guys that you could be around. And so you can imagine when I got a call from my dad informing me that my brother had just passed away, like I was shocked and I was devastated. It was an easy decision to change my number my senior year at BYU to number 7 to honor him, which is the number that he wore. I'll tell you still to this day, like I still get emotional every time that I see a hill with a number 7 on it with the jersey. I received some advice from Jim Harbaugh. He called me. He was the head coach at the San Francisco 49ers at the time. And he said, you know, look, Taysom, guys like you and me, we just need to compete. I mean, we hope it's on the football field, but right now, like, you can't compete on the football field. So go compete in life. That was some of the best advice I've ever received. And I went and competed in the classroom. And that's really what keeps me going. I just find ways to compete to get to where I want to be. There's no option to give up. There's no option to just say, oh man, like, that was my 4th season-ending injury, like, I'm done. You just have to keep moving forward. My experience in the NFL has been unique. My mentality was, look, I'm going to go in and I'm going to help this team in any way that I can. Our quarterback coach, Joe Lombardi, made a comment like, you could play special teams, couldn't you? And the easy one, like, dude, of course, whatever you want. That week, I played against the Carolina Panthers. It was the second time we were playing them as a divisional opponent, a big-time game. It was just a ton of fun. You can't just hang your hat on, you know, a single game or a single victory. If you want to really be great, you've got to sustain that. When you find success, it's not enough to just say, hey, I'm happy, this is great. Like, you actually got to work harder.
Thank you, guys. It's funny, whenever I talk about my college career, I really talk about, like, it's the career of what could have been, you know, which it's been a wild experience. And I feel like that video explains my college career better than I could in words. I just want to hit a few highlights because I think growing up, we all have a vision for our lives, a vision for ourselves of what we're going to do and what we're going to accomplish. And the reality is oftentimes those aren't the opportunities that are presented to ourselves. My college career, I wanted the opportunities to be on the football field. That's why I went to BYU. That was my motivation. But that's not the opportunities that I had. I want to talk about just a few of the years that I had. In 2014, it was one of the years that was highlighted in this video, but that was one of the more devastating injuries that I had in my career. Excuse me. We were undefeated at the time. I was playing well, and I felt like, man, we were right on the cusp of something great. And then this injury happened, and I really had to look myself in the mirror and figure out, okay, now what? And the video mentioned that conversation that I had with Jim, and that really changed my life. And that's something that I still think about to this day, of trying to take advantage of every opportunity, that I have in my life. So that particular year, I went and I challenged myself to do well in school, and frankly, I got an internship with Paleon that I was not qualified for, and was so grateful that Blake and those guys would take a chance on me. But I pursued other opportunities. In 2015, after working really hard to recover, and starting my senior year, first game of the season, I tear my Liz Frank against the University of Nebraska. And that was equally as devastating to me. And again, the opportunities that I wanted were not the opportunities that were presented to me. And so I pursued other things. I went to work with Paleon again. I worked there. I flew to New York. I networked and met with people at Goldman Sachs. We're going to hear from Brian Murphy. I remember meeting with Brian Murphy when I was at Paleon and getting his advice about, what can I be doing and what other opportunities are out there for me. And then I came back and I played one more year in 2016 at BYU. And having another injury against Utah State, ripped my tricep tendon off the bone. My wife and I looked at each other at the end of that year, and we were forced with a decision. What are we going to do? And I'm going to be honest, we were considering, hey, is this just not meant to be? Right? Is this football thing not meant to be for us? And frankly, it was, are we silly for even having this conversation? Like, what are we doing? And we ultimately concluded that we were too close, that we had given too much to this game to not pursue it. So we made the decision that, hey, we're going to give it everything we had. And so we did. That year, I worked at a family office, Macaulay Partners. I was working full-time. I was rehabbing my tricep, and I was training twice a day to get ready for BYU's Pro Day in 2017. And got ready for the Pro Day. Luckily, I went to Pro Day and ended up having a pretty good day, and it created an opportunity for me to go to the Green Bay Packers. Now, first of all, I got a little photo. I need to, I feel like I've gotten so much flack over this photo. I have to tell you, I wasn't going to be the only quarterback in Green Bay that was wearing like a modern helmet and not wearing the diaper chin strap. So that's the story behind the uniform. So anyways, I went to Green Bay. For those of you who don't know, every rookie contract is the same in the NFL. I was undrafted, so I signed a 3-year contract, which is the same as every undrafted player that comes out of college. The only variable in these contracts is your signing bonus. And your signing bonus is your only guaranteed money that comes in your rookie deal. And so, as we were going through this, negotiating it, my guaranteed money, my rookie year, was $5,000. They paid me $5,000 to come to training camp, and that was it. They did not owe me another penny, which means they could cut me at any time and not owe me anything. We said, what the heck, let's go. So my wife stayed. She worked full-time. She was supporting us. And I went to Green Bay, went to OTAs, training camp, preseason, and I had a decent training camp and preseason. And I still remember, it was like the 1st of September. It was cut day, and there's a deadline. all your 53-man rosters have to be submitted by a certain time. And I remember I was driving in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it was 10 minutes to the deadline. And I was thinking in my head, oh my gosh, I think I was talking to my wife. I said, babe, I think we made it. Like, I haven't got a call yet. Rosters are due in 10 minutes. And as I said that, I'm getting a call from a Green Bay number. And so I tell my wife, hey, I got to take this. And it was the call that nobody wants to receive. I was asked to come in. I went and spoke with Coach McCarthy for about an hour. And he explained to me, hey, you deserve a 53-man spot, but I don't have one for you. So I'm sure he was just trying to butter me up to come back and sign on the practice squad. Said, no big deal. I think that was on maybe a Thursday or Friday, and I had to wait the weekend. For those of you who don't know, what happens when you're cut, you get put on a waiver wire. So just like the draft, there's an order in the draft. There's an order on this waiver wire that a team can submit a claim that basically you become traded if somebody puts a claim in for that team. So I went in Sunday morning fully expecting to sign to the Green Bay Packers practice squad. I went in Sunday, I see a scout, and he's kind of walking towards me, and he's a little bit mad. I can tell he's a little grumpy, and he says, you were just claimed by the New Orleans Saints. And I really didn't know what that meant, to be honest. So he explained to me whatever. And that evening, I was on a flight to New Orleans, practiced with the New Orleans Saints Monday morning, and we got ready for a Monday night game against Minnesota that week. And then the rest is kind of history. I'm going to talk a little bit about my career in New Orleans, just one piece, because I'm asked all the time, how did this happen? You know, how did you start doing everything that you're doing? And for those of you who aren't super familiar, I'll give a quick summary of how the NFL works. So you have 53 guys that make an active roster. But on game day, you can only put 46 in a jersey. Right, so there's 6 guys that don't have a jersey that are just standing on the sidelines with a hat and a sweatshirt. And for the first, 75% of our season, my rookie year, that was me. I was in a sweatshirt, hat, chewing sunflower seeds on the sideline, enjoying life. And I went into work on Wednesday, and our special teams coach grabbed me, and he said, hey, I want to try you out on a couple things today. Will you be on our scout kickoff team, our scout kickoff return team? I was like, what the heck, dude? I've never played special teams in my life, but sure, whatever. And so I did it that day. And Thursday, I walked into the facility, and I looked at the depth chart in our locker room, and I found out that I was starting on kickoff and kickoff return that week. And then that practice, they said, hey, we want to try you on punt return. So I said, okay. And then Friday morning, I walked in, and I found that I was starting on punt return. And then I played that week against the Carolina Panthers that we talked about in this video. And I had a good game, and the rest is kind of history. It's just kind of evolved from there. But again, I think the point that is important here is it doesn't really matter what the opportunity is, right? It might not be the opportunity that we want, and if I'm being honest with you, it was not the opportunity that I wanted, right? I'm forever grateful for the New Orleans Saints. I'm forever grateful to Sean Payton, Coach Westhoff, for giving me an opportunity, but it wasn't the opportunity that I wanted. But it was the opportunity that I got, and my mindset that came from my childhood was go do your best to overachieve and go do everything you can to create success for you and for your family. So I wasn't going to let that opportunity go to waste. And that has really been my mindset throughout my NFL career and how I ended up where I am. There's this quote that I love It says motivation is literally the desire to do things. It's the difference between waking up before dawn to pound the pavement and lazing around the house all day. It says, so figure out what you want, power through the pain period, and start being who you want to be. So I started my presentation off by asking you to define what the word success means to you. And I hope you thought about that. I hope you're still thinking about that. Because as you answer that question, I think the next thing will be what motivates you to do that? What motivates you to accomplish that? And I just want to throw this picture up. As I think about the answer to that question for me, it's this photo. Right, as I think about this idea of overachieving, as I think about where I'm at in my life and as I get older, I hope one day that, that my wife can look at me and say, man, you are a better husband than I could have ever imagined. I hope that my son, Bo, and my next son, Bennett, who is about to come out in about 2 weeks, thank you. But I hope that my boys can look at me and say, Dad, you are a better father than I could have ever hoped for, right? And I think that principle can apply to each of us, whether we're a colleague, whether we're a boss, right? Is that you overachieved. And I think that idea is so encompassing, right? It's this idea of not thinking about yourself. It's about thinking about other people. It's about helping other people become better. And that's what I love about it. So again, I ask you to revisit this idea of how do you define success. Think about what that means to you, and then think about what motivates you to accomplish that. I love this idea that Nike posted in an advertisement, and they talk about athletic greatness, but I believe it applies to just greatness in general. It says the road to athletic greatness or greatness is not marked by perfection, but the ability to constantly overcome adversity and failure. Right? I have made so many mistakes throughout my life, but I have been able to recognize them, and you try to continue to become better and better and better. And that is how you become great. That is how you overachieve. So as you think about all of these questions, as you think about where you're at, think about what you want. And just in conclusion, I love this visual. I love this thought about Michael Jordan. It says you can't stop someone who knows where they're going, right? So think about this question for yourself, because if you know where you're going, what you want in life, you can't be stopped. Thank you, guys.